Our trip to Toronto for my wife and I's wedding anniversary began like any other, with a lot of flying and waiting. We flew out of a very small airport in Columbia in a plane that was literally taped together, and then had a layover in the substantially larger Chicago airport where Brooke was pulled aside by TSA for the first time this trip because of some very dangerous Nutri-Grain bars in her bag, apparently. After that, we got overpriced lunch and then continued our trek to the cold, white north. Not much else to say here. In the plane, I just watched the beauty outside the window and played some games until landing. We were so lucky that my good friend and podcast co-host Thomas agreed to pick us up from the airport in Toronto, and I was so happy for him to be the first person we got to see. We checked into our hotel, which was pretty tiny, but had a really cool aesthetic and was close to Edmund Square, so we were still content. And then we treated Thomas to dinner at Imperial Pub nearby. It was a really cool place, with a huge fish tank and a random guy playing piano alone in the back room, though we were too scared of getting caught to film him for proof. But just take our word for it. This is also where we learned that Toronto is expensive. The food and drinks were great, but wow, we underestimated how much cash to get for the trip. Anyway, Thomas mentioned that there was a delicious little bakery called Uncle Tetsu's that he'd always wanted to visit, and we discovered it was right down the road, so we explored the city a bit and headed to the little hole-in-the-wall, delicious-smelling bakery to pick up some snacks. This place specializes in very famous cheesecake, but their matcha flavor was only available on certain days, and I really wanted to try the matcha, which was only available in the cookies all week, so we decided that was a better way to try a variety of flavors. We took our new snacks back to the hotel to give our thoughts, but a long story short, they were delicious, and I surprisingly liked the traditional cheese flavor more than the matcha. Who knew?
Yeah, these are great. If I could, I'd just sit down and eat these, like 3 cases of these.
After that, we said goodnight to Thomas and settled in for bed. And speaking of Thomas, he was such a good friend that he also brought me one of those limited edition cups that only came to Canadian 7-Elevens as a promotion for the release of the newest Zelda game, so I got to go to bed happy and ready for our first full day in Toronto. The next morning, we sought out another famous Toronto institution, Tim Hortons. I totally get the appeal of this place. They have some good food options and good drink variety. Trust me, this was the first of many visits. After breakfast, we looked around the super cool Edmund Square area for a bit. It felt like we were in the middle of Times Square in New York, and since I have yet to go to New York, it was a neat experience. Once the giant mall nearby opened, we wandered that for a while, and wow, this place apparently didn't get the memo that malls are dying. It was a 4-story monstrosity full of high-end stores and weirdly gigantic art pieces. My friend and professional streamer Magic Zenith and his Twitch mod Ocean met us at the mall, and we went to the big touristy Toronto sign nearby. They were cleaning it to get ready to apparently turn the area into an outdoor ice skating rink. We miss all the cool stuff. But we were still able to get some fun pictures and even saw what I guess was a Remembrance Day parade march nearby. After our touristy pit stop, we headed to lunch, only 4 minutes away, at a Korean barbecue place that ended up being about a half-hour walk. By that point, we were starving, but it was totally worth it because the place was the most fun I've had making food in a long time. Basically, the waiter brings out a bunch of different kinds of meat, rice, and some side dishes, and you cook whatever you want yourselves at the table. Most of the meat had some really tasty seasoning, but they also had soy sauce and a spicy oil mixture that made a satisfying sizzle on the grill and livened up the meat even more. It was all great. Except the oyster rings. Those didn't get eaten except as a dare, but I can confirm they were disgusting.
Dirt. Look at that onion ring. Ooh. This shouldn't even be allowed on YouTube.
Thank you. Why did you want more spice?
Was it the steak?
I kind of hope it's not cooked. Because it's so chewy.
You'll be eating this thing for the next 5 hours. I'll be here.
Do we need to dump it back in?
It doesn't taste like anything.
After lunch, we went back over near the mall to a local bar/brewery with a cool aesthetic. I like to do beer flights whenever possible because I can try a larger variety for cheap, and here the beer itself was just okay, but I really liked the space.
Worse?
Yeah.
Huh.
The bar staff seemed a little overwhelmed though, so we didn't stay long and moved on to other cool sights on our way to the night's festivities. Brooke wanted to see what's called the Graffiti District, and it was actually pretty cool. Gotta respect when beautiful wall art like this is preserved instead of destroyed. It made this older part of town feel more artistic and interesting. After we said goodbye to Ocean and made another stop at Tim Hortons for coffee, we made it to Tilt Barcade. This place was really cool and also very reasonably priced, because after an entry fee, all the games inside were free. I love this model because you don't have to worry about tokens or cards or anything that limits your desire to try things. It also meant that we spent more time hovering around games that were being hogged by children, but that's a small price to pay. But regardless, this whole night was amazing. We got there a little early, but after a while Thomas and our other friend Link joined as well, and us longtime online friends got to sit on couches together and play local multiplayer games for the first time ever. Those of you that don't understand quote-unquote internet friends might not get how huge this was for me. But honestly, I got a little emotional in the bathroom at one point when I thought about it too much. After spending years with these guys, playing games together online, making content together, and getting to know each other in that way, it felt so natural to hang out, even though we were technically meeting for the first time.
I'm not gonna make it. I'm not gonna make it.
No!
This is what. Wow. I just blew up.
Nailed it! Say what you will, but the internet really does bring people together. Anyway, we had a lot of fun playing games together, and I even got to try some poutine for the first time.
It's actually really good. The gravy isn't what I expected it to be.
Zenith and I also got to rekindle our long-running Mario Kart feud in person for once. There's sadly no video proof of my last stretch victory, but trust me, it was sweet, and he was salty. I know I've been spending a lot of time on this small part of our trip, but it was big for me, and easily my favorite part of the trip. So I'm sorry to anyone just wanting to see more of Toronto. I want to talk about my friends right now. Plus, this is the end of this video. After parting ways, we got Thomas to drive us back to our hotel and then went to bed. But I had a hard time falling asleep because I already missed my friends. Hopefully it won't be the last time we all get to hang out together.